think Jake Paul is crazy enough to fight Anthony Joshua because the money would be absolutely obscene. It's a catastrophic mismatch that people would tune in to watch because it would lead to the end of Jake Paul.
Ladies and gentlemen, grab your popcorn, your smelling salts, and maybe even your emergency contact. Because what Eddie Hearn just dropped about Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua is the kind of bombshell that makes the Kardashians look like a slow Tuesday at the DMV. This isn't news. This is a full-blown meltdown of logic, ego, and delusion wrapped in one glorious, chaotic package. And according to Eddie Hearn, Jake Paul isn't just playing with fire. He's juggling flamethrowers blindfolded while standing in a pool of gasoline. Because apparently, Jake Paul, the internet's favorite boxing experiment, has decided he might actually want smoke with Anthony Iwas built in God's private gym. Joshua. And Eddie Hearn is out here practically waving red flags, sirens, neon warning signs, and a whole emergency broadcast system screaming, "Jake, turn back. This is not your battle." But Jake. Oh, Jake is convinced he's ready. He's hyped. He's energized. He's walking around like a man who watched 2 Rocky movies and woke up thinking he was a fully upgraded heavyweight cyborg. And Eddie Hearn, with the calmness of a doctor delivering the worst diagnosis ever, basically said, Jake Paul has no idea the level of danger he's asking for. And trust me when Eddie Hearn says danger, he doesn't mean ouch. He means Anthony. Joshua might hit Jake so hard his YouTube password resets itself. He means Jake's soul might file a noise complaint. He means Jake Paul could wake up after the fight, asking, "Did I win?" while standing in an emergency room. So, buckle in. Because the truth Eddie Hearn spilled is so wild, so explosive, so unbelievably reckless, that it might just be the biggest mistake Jake Paul has ever made. The moment the rumor hit the internet that Jake Paul was eyeing Anthony Joshua, yes, that Anthony Joshua, the one carved out of titanium, prayer, and British discipline, the entire sports world did a collective double take, so hard chiropractors started trending. Nobody believed it at first. People thought it was a prank, a meme, or maybe one of those AI-generated fever dreams where SpongeBob becomes a UFC champion. But no, this came from Jake Paul's own orbit. And that's when Eddie Hearn stepped in like the only adult at a kid's birthday party holding AFLAM, Mechar, because Eddie didn't just react. He delivered a warning so brutal, so unfiltered. It felt like he was trying to save Jake Paul's life before the paperwork even got printed. According to Hearn, Jake Paul isn't just overconfident. He isn't just ambitious. No? Eddie Hearn said Jake Paul is walking straight toward a heavyweight nightmare with the same enthusiasm as someone volunteering to be a test dummy for a rocket engine. And the craziest part, Jake seems proud of it. Let's rewind. Jake Paul started as the internet's favorite troublemaker, turned semi-serious boxer, turned self-proclaimed disruptor of the entire sport. And to be fair, he has done the impossible multiple times. He's built a fan base bigger than some nations. He's made millions by punching retired athletes. He's reinvented himself more often than a Kardashian launches a new makeup line. But stepping into the ring with Anthony Joshua? That's not a reinvention. That's the final chapter of a documentary titled Ambition Gone Wrong: The Jake Paul Story. Eddie Hearn knows Anthony Joshua on a level the rest of the world doesn't. He's watched AJ take punches from elite killers and shrug them off like mosquito bites. He's watched AJ train like he's preparing to fight the sun itself. So when Eddie said Jake Paul would be in serious danger, it didn't sound like hype. It sounded like he was trying to call Jake's parents, his lawyer, and maybe even NASA to let them know someone is about to attempt something human bones were not designed for. Jake Paul, however, is convinced he belongs in the ring with giants. Maybe he mistook Jay's calm personality for softness. Maybe he saw AJ smile once and thought, yeah, I got this. Maybe he drank one too many protein shakes and felt invincible. Whatever the reason, Jake has developed the kind of confidence usually reserved for comic book villains and people who have never been punched in the ribs by a heavyweight. With knockout intentions, Eddie Hearn didn't sugarcoat anything. He flat out said that Jake Paul would be fighting someone who hits with the force of a runaway planet with bad intentions. He also hinted that Paul's team is delusional enough to think they can strategize around Jay's experience, power, speed, reach, IQ, and ability to fold men like clean laundry. Eddie's message wasn't subtle. It was basically, Jake, my guy, you are not in the same galaxy. To make things even more hilarious, Jake Paul tweeted cryptic clues, acting like the whole thing was destiny. Destiny. The only destiny involved here is Jake Paul waking up after the fight, asking the paramedics if the cameras are still rolling. Jake behaves like he's the chosen one in some mystical boxing prophecy written on the back of a Logan Paul-sponsored energy drink can. But Eddie's warning was simple. This is not a game. And here's where the scandal brewed even hotter. Rumors began spreading that Jake Paul had been privately pushing for the AJ fight for months, not days, not weeks, months, behind the scenes. Jake has apparently been telling people that AJ is beatable, predictable, and overrated. The blasphemy. Boxing fans haven't been this offended since someone compared a TikTok dancer to Floyd Mayweather. Once Eddie caught wind of Paul calling AJ beatable, you could practically hear the gears turning in his head. Oh, this kid wants to meet God. Eddie knew he had to say something publicly before Jake convinced himself he was invincible, immortal, or the final boss of boxing video games. So, Eddie went on air and delivered the most devastating, politely British warning ever. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He just calmly explained, like a teacher telling a student why jumping out of a second-floor window isn't ideal, that Jake Paul is wildly underestimating the difference between boxing celebrities and boxing monsters. Eddie said he wasn't. Sure, Jake understood the physics of being hit by someone like AJ, because when AJ punches, objects move. Worlds shake. Careers reconsider themselves. And that's when the internet erupted. Memes exploded across every platform within minutes. Fans started posting pictures of Jake Paul's face photoshopped onto cartoon bodies flying through space. TikTok creators reenacted the hypothetical fight using action figures, with Jake collapsing after a gentle tap. Even professional fighters chimed in. Some laughing, some begging Jake not to do this. Others offering prayers like this was a spiritual matter rather than a sporting one. Jake Paul ignored them all. He doubled down, saying he wants big challenges, big names, and big legacy moments. Which sounds inspirational until you remember that Anthony Joshua is not a moment. He's a crisis. He's a natural disaster with gloves on. Eddie Hearn did everything but tattoo warning labels on Jake Paul's forehead before speaking publicly about it again. When T revealed that discussions had actually taken place, real meetings, real conversations, real interest, the media lost its mind. One side thought Jake Paul was a genius for chasing the biggest payday of his life. The other side thought he had officially entered his main character delusion era. And somewhere in the middle was Eddie Hearn, rubbing his forehead like a man watching his Wi-Fi bill triple for no reason. The craziest detail Eddie shared. Jake Paul's team was confident, not hopeful, not optimistic, confident. They apparently believe Jay's style is made for Jake, a claim so bold. Scientists are still researching if it was said. Sober. Eddie's final blow to the narrative came in a chilling, almost cinematic line. In 100 attempts, Jake Paul does not defeat Anthony Joshua. 100 attempts, no victory. That's not a prediction. That's a prophecy carved into Mount Olympus. And with that, the stage was set. The scandal wasn't just Jake wanting to fight AJ. It was the sheer madness behind the decision. The leak wasn't that a fight was possible. It was that Jake's team actually believed it was a good idea. And Eddie Hearn, the man who has seen real heavyweights tear through the sport, made it clear Jake Paul should be very afraid. The moment Eddie Hearn's warning hit the timeline, the internet didn't just react, it detonated. It felt like the entire digital universe collectively screamed, "Jake, what are you doing?" Because suddenly, every celebrity, fighter, influencer, meme lord, and their confused cousin had something to say about Jake Paul wanting to fight Anthony Joshua. And trust me, nobody held back. Within minutes, social media was turning Jake Paul into a walking punchline. One viral tweet read, "Jake Paul trying to fight Anthony Joshua is like a chihuahua challenging a Cybertruck to a head-on collision." Another said, "Jake, if you want clout, just say that. No need to apply for the afterlife." Someone even edited Jake's face onto a crash test dummy, and the dummy still had a better survival rate than Jake's chances against AJ. Meanwhile, TikTok turned the situation into a full cinematic universe. Creators reenacted AJ knocking Jake into alternate dimensions. One TikTok showed Jake stepping into the ring, AJ blinking once, and Jake instantly turning into a Wi-Fi router. Another had Jake getting hit so hard he respawned in his Disney Channel era. The hashtags were wild. Hashtag pray for Jake. Hashtag AJ Don, single quotes, to do it. Hashtag Jake's Paul Challenge meaning of life. But here's where the chaos got even juicier. Actual celebrities started chiming in. Real esters, fighters, actors, comedians. Everybody had a hot take. Kevin Hart posted, "Jake Paul fighting AJ. That's not bravery. That's a medical documentary waiting to happen. That's a medical documentary waiting to happen." 50 Cent shared a picture of an ambulance and captioned it, "Get this ready for the boy." Snoop Dogg went live saying, "Jake, nephew, don't do this. AJ ain't someone you fight. He's someone you hire to move a couch." Even Shaq, a man who laughs at danger, shook his head and said, "Nah, no way. Not a J." Then came the fighters, the people who actually know what it feels like to take a punch from someone built like an ancient gladiator. Dylan Danis joked, "Jake Paul will be eating mashed potatoes through a straw after this one." Conor McGregor didn't even bother with words. He just tweeted a coffin emoji. Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King himself, laughed and said, "Jake should fight me instead. At least I give him a chance to run away." And then there was Deontay Wilder, who summed it up with one chilling sentence: "AJ hits like a hammer forged by God. Jake Paul won't last 30 seconds. The memes, the reactions, the expert takes, they all created the same picture. Jake Paul was diving headfirst into the most dangerous moment of his career. And he was doing it with the confidence of a man who's never been hurt by reality. But Jake didn't back down. Oh no. Jake doubled down like a man who Googled how to be fearless and didn't scroll past the first result. He posted training clips with captions like, "Heavyweight mindset, bigger challenges equals bigger legacy." People laughed at the Wright brothers too. Buddy, the Wright brothers didn't fistfight airplanes. Jake acted like he was rewriting history. Like he was the main character in a motivational movie where the underdog shocks the world. Except this isn't a movie. This is a real heavyweight with real power who punches like he's trying to reset the Earth's rotation. But Jake's delusional energy inspired a new wave of content. Fan edits showed him walking like Neo from The Matrix. Commentators began debating whether Jake had secretly acquired superpowers. One YouTuber even analyzed Jake's astrology chart to check if this was a destiny moment. Spoiler, the stars said, absolutely not. And while the internet was having the time of its life roasting Jake like a Thanksgiving turkey, the boxing world grew increasingly horrified because Eddie Hearn dropped even more bombshells in a podcast interview. Eddie revealed that Jake Paul's team genuinely believed AJ's weaknesses could be exploited. The only thing Jake Paul might exploit is a hospital bed. Eddie also said Jake's camp thinks AJ has slowed down. Anthony Joshua slowing down still means he punches hard enough to send a small Beto SUV into orbit. Hearn compared the size difference between the two fighters and said, Jake is a cruiserweight at best. AJ is a heavyweight who hits like a meteor. He didn't say pillow fight danger. He said meteor, as in extinction level event. But the drama didn't stop there. Fans on Reddit started analyzing hypothetical fight scenarios like it was a war strategy. One user wrote a 12-paragraph simulation describing Jake getting hit and turning into a cloud of beige dust. Another user responded, too generous? Meanwhile, the boxing subreddit posted a poll titled, How long does Jake survive? Options were 30 seconds, 15 seconds, ding ding. And that's EYT doesn't step into the ring after seeing AJ in person, the poll winner. Ding ding. And that's it. But then came the biggest twist. Jake Paul went live and said, people think AJ scares me. He doesn't. I train with heavyweights all the time. The chat went silent for 3 seconds. Then exploded with messages like, which heavyweights? Which planet? Bro sparring Logan doesn't count. Training with heavyweights who aren't AJ is like practicing swimming in a bathtub and then entering the Pacific Ocean. Even Logan Paul tried to gently hint that maybe, just maybe, Jake was out of his mind. Logan told fans, look, Jake likes big challenges, but AJ is literally built different. Translation, I love my brother and I don't want him turned into confetti. But Jake's confidence kept growing, feeding off the chaos. He posted another clip hitting mitts, another video lifting weights, another reel looking at himself in the mirror like he was the second coming of Apollo Creed. People weren't convinced. One user wrote, every time Jake uploads a training clip, AJ gains more power like a video game boss. Another said, Jake Paul hitting pads isn't scary. AJ hitting pads sounds like a garage door closing on your soul. And then came the pop culture comparisons. Twitter users compared Jake's bravery to a toddler challenging King Kong a goldfish slapping a shark a Roomba charging at a bulldozer mosquito, telling a tornado to chill but the best one. A Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight would have the same energy as a McDonald's ketchup packet squaring up with a hydraulic press. That went viral instantly. By now, public outrage mixed with public comedy. Some fans demanded the fight not happen, claiming it was inhumane. Others said they'd pay unlimited money to watch the disaster unfold. A few even started GoFundMe pages titled Protect Jake Paul and Buy Jake a helmet before he meets a J. Eddie Hearn couldn't escape the madness. Every interview he did spiraled back to Jake Paul. Reporters kept asking, does Jake have a nigh chance? Eddie answered the same way every time. A soft sigh, a polite smile, and a verbal slap. No, absolutely not. And yet, Jake Paul kept pushing, kept talking, kept promoting, kept acting like he was being called to destiny instead of a stretcher. The storm only intensified. The memes got crazier. The reactions got louder. Public opinion got sharper. And every time Jake showed confidence, the boxing world screamed louder. Jake Paul should fear Anthony Joshua, and Eddie Hearn is trying to save him before it's too late. By the time the smoke settled from Eddie Hearn's warnings, the internet's meltdown, and Jake Paul's unstoppable confidence tour, The entire boxing universe felt like it was living inside the season finale of a reality show. Nobody asked for, but absolutely couldn't stop watching. And now came the real question: what happens if Jake Paul actually steps into the ring with Anthony Joshua? What are the consequences, the fallout, the shockwaves that would ripple through the sport, social media, and the entire Paul empire? Because let's be extremely clear, this isn't just another fight. This isn't Jake versus a retired MMA fighter or a YouTuber who learned footwork from Fortnite. This is Anthony Joshua, a two-time heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, and walking apocalypse in human form. Once the fantasy becomes reality, everything changes. Survival becomes news. Losing becomes expected. And getting obliterated becomes the most likely outcome since gravity. And that's where the aftermath begins. First, let's talk about Jake's career reputation. Right now, Jake Paul is a disruptor, a rebel. The guy who stepped out of the YouTube universe and punched his way into the mainstream conversation. People don't necessarily respect his boxing, but they respect his hustle, his business brain, his ability to make headlines out of thin air. But the moment he steps into the ring with a J, that reputation turns into something else entirely. It becomes a countdown to impact. Jake isn't the villain anymore. He becomes the underdog lamb, walking into a lion's interview. And if, or more realistically, when AJ crushes him, Jake Paul's entire superstar boxer narrative shatters like cheap glassware. Hardcore boxing fans would say, "See? Told you so." Casual fans would say, "Wait, he actually tried this." And Jake himself would have to confront a truth he may not be emotionally prepared to process. There are levels in this sport that no amount of hype, clout, or delusion can bypass. But the consequences go even deeper. Because after a fight like that, the public perception of Jake Paul changes forever. Right now, Jake is seen as wild, chaotic, and fearless. But after a J, people might start wondering if he crossed the line between bravery and self-destructive optimism. His fans might rally behind him, sure, but the internet, the machine that built him, will also be the machine that chews him alive. Every joke, every meme, every slow-motion replay of Anthony Joshua landing a punch that sends Jake Paul into the astral realm. All of that becomes permanent internet culture. Immortal UNSCAP. Able. Brand deals don't like that. Sponsors don't love concussions. Investors don't bet on people who look too breakable. Which brings us to the next consequence: the effect on Jake Paul's business empire. The Paul brothers run their careers like corporations. Every fight, every announcement, every public feud is part of a strategy to expand influence, sell products, and dominate every corner of media. But if Jake gets flattened by AJ in front of millions, the Jake Paul industry takes a hit so severe it could change his trajectory for years. Prime hydration, Maverick merch, pay-per-view negotiations, public partnerships, companies like Winners, companies like Reliability, companies like influencers who have working facial bones. A loss isn't the issue, it's the manner of the loss that matters. Getting beaten is normal, getting obliterated by a heavyweight titan while the entire world laughs. That's brand damage money can't immediately fix. But there's another layer, one even crazier. The impact on Anthony Joshua, because make no mistake, this fight isn't risk-free for AJ either, and that's part of the reason. Eddie Hearn is pacing around interviews like a stressed-out dad. For AJ, fighting Jake Paul is a double-edged sword the size of Excalibur. If he wins, everyone shrugs and says, well, obviously. If anything less than total destruction happens, if Jake lands one clean punch, or survives longer than 60 seconds, or looks remotely competent, AJ becomes a meme too. Imagine the headlines, too. Imagine the headlines. Jake Paul survives 2 minutes against AJ Boxing World Shaken. AJ takes longer than expected Jake Paul victory. Jake Paul didn't die. Is AJ slipping? It's absurd, but that's how social media works. Logic isn't welcome here. Facts get thrown out the window. AJ's entire career, legacy, and future could be overshadowed by one stupid narrative. Jake Paul did better than expected. And then there's the scheduling danger. AJ is preparing for real, massive heavyweight fights, the kind that actually matter. So fighting Jake Paul becomes a disruption, a distraction, a higher-risk, low-reward circus act that could derail timing, momentum, and negotiations. Eddie Hearn knows this. That's why he's treating this whole situation like a biological hazard. But let's zoom in on the social fallout. The world that thrives on chaos, because the moment AJ hits Jake with a clean right hand, social media won't be ready. Memes will erupt like fireworks. Reaction channels will break upload records. Twitter will crash. TikTok will freeze. And Jake Paul's entire fanbase will start posting emotional tributes like he just fought. Thanos with a plastic fork. Sports analysts will say, "We warned him." Boxing experts will say, "This wasn't fair." YouTubers will say, "Content time." Casual fans will scream, "Why did he do this?" Jake's haters will rent billboards. Jake's supporters will hold prayer circles. And Jake Paul himself, he'll wake up asking what day it is, where he is, and why his teeth feel like a scattered puzzle. But after the dust settles, something even stranger happens. The narrative resets. The world will look at Jake differently, sure, but it will also wait for the next scandal, the next fight, the next explosion. Because Jake Paul, love him or despise him, is built from controversy. And this level of destruction might just fuel his next reinvention. Maybe he goes full villain. Maybe he retires. Maybe he makes a documentary about the punch heard around the world. Or maybe, and this is the wild part, he comes back stronger, crazier, and even more unhinged. Because Jake Paul doesn't disappear. He mutates, and Anthony Joshua. He walks away with another payday, another knockout, and another reminder that when a heavyweight punches, everything else becomes irrelevant. In the end, Eddie Hearn's warning wasn't just a warning. It was prophecy. A prophecy of danger, delusion, ego, ambition, and the kind of chaos only Jake Paul can summon. And the world now hangs on one question. Will Jake Paul actually fight Anthony Joshua? Or will sanity save him at the last possible second? Either way, the fallout has already begun, and the scandal is only getting louder. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of this heavyweight fever dream, this magical journey through delusion, danger, destiny, and a whole lot of Jake Paul-sized chaos. If you made it this far without passing out, it's calling 911 for Jake in advance, or texting your group chat, "Bro, he's really not built for a J." Then congratulations, you're built different. But before you run off to rewatch Anthony Joshua highlights and pray Jake Paul never sees them, let me hit you with the real question. What do you think? Is Jake Paul the bravest man alive? Is he the most delusional man alive? Or is he simply trying to speedrun his own documentary titled "How I Accidentally Met Jesus" in Round 1? Drop your wildest take in the comments and don't hold back. This channel stays messy, so go ahead and unleash your inner chaos. And while you're down there, smash that like button like it owes you money. Like you're trying to wake Jake up after AJ hits him. Like Eddie Hearn smashing the panic alarm every time Jake opens